Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll be talking about integrating virtual reality into safety planning. It's a project we've been working on as a group, which integrates virtual reality into the planning process for a collaborative team approach on site as opposed to off-site. It's actually on-site application using the trades people as well as the management team to look at logistics issues and plan the work out prior to construction. We'll just start off with an introduction to the speakers. Myself, my name is Sewell. I am a senior lecturer at Sheffield Hallam University. I've got experience in site management and I'm a PhD student at Leeds Beckett University presently. My research is around health and safety management, building information modelling, and most recently into digital tools and techniques such as virtual reality, 4D modelling and the like.
I'm Katie Robertson, design manager at Sewell Construction. So as it's on the screen, I've got 10 years experience in construction industry and specifically 5 years within design management. And at Sewell, I'm responsible for all aspects of BIM. And we're recently certified under ISO 19650, formerly PAS 11922. And for pushing forward digital innovations to create improvement in efficiencies on site and in the office as well.
On to me. Afternoon, everyone. My name is Donkin. I'm an assistant quantity surveyor for Sewell Construction. I'm currently undertaking a part-time degree along working in the industry in chartered quantity surveying at Sheffield, Hallam. And the project what we're going to be discussing with the VR, I'm responsible for managing the costs and subcontractor accounts throughout the project.
So we'll talk through the content of the presentation first. So we'll start with an introduction to the company, and then we'll move into methods used by the company previously, and then we'll run into the main part of the presentation, which is what is virtual reality, what is the main benefits of using virtual reality generally, and then within a safety aspect as a case study. So we'll look at the project as a whole, what we did as part of the project, the feedback we got, how we went about implementing it, and then we'll look into other engagements with the school that are nearby, and then next steps. So that's kind of the idea, to run through the case study step by step as how we actually used the technology as a tool on site.
Lovely. So a little bit about Sewell Group and Sewell Construction. So Sewell Construction are part of the wider Sewell Group, and on the screen you can see the estates arm of the company structure. So also last year we received the Queen's Award for Enterprise for promoting opportunity, as well as being recognised as a Sunday Times Best Company to Work for. So the Sewell estate offers and provides a fully holistic approach to project management, and this is from investment and project planning stage through to construction of the new build or refurb, following on with our dedicated facilities management offering and estates planning services as well.
Just a little bit on our behaviours then, as part of our culture, so we try to promote our culture throughout the business. And there's 5 key behaviours what our employees we're trying to aim for really, and it's really reflective in what we're trying to produce here with the VR reality. We're looking to be team players and work as a group, as a collective, and be collaborative. We're looking to do the right thing, be positive, and be professional, and obviously be customer focused. And obviously, as highlighted by Gordon earlier, with clients, their demands, we're always trying to meet their demands through like the VR reality.
Okay, lovely. This slide just shows how we utilise BIM and the model currently whilst on site on our projects. So starting top left, we utilise BIM model walkthroughs for our client team. This is great for visualisation, so fly-throughs of schools and health centres, etc., for both the client and the end users and their FM teams as well. We've also started using FF&E visualisation tools using QR codes. So we've just built a new school down the road in Hull where we're based, and this is a visual that we were able to show the teachers and they were able to walk around their spaces prior to the school being built to understand what their new learning facilities would look like. Really simple, that one. Use of the VR headset and software to engage our clients and students. That's something that we've been doing in various capacities over the past few years. We've also recently trialled and implemented a digital O&M manual, which is attached to the BIM model and can be attached to the FM CAFM system as well. That's alongside BIM Sense and offerings. I think Tom knows all about that one. We have recently been certified to ISO 19650, as I've said, and prior PAS 11922, and we utilise crash coordination and detection exercises using Celebri software as well. Okay, this slide shows a project. It was Hull New Theatre in Hull, and it was a project about 5, 6, 7 years ago now, not one that I was involved in. But the reason that I've included the slide is because our project manager at the time, who's now our construction MD, he utilised an existing CloudPoint survey of Hull New Theatre alongside the BIM model and Google Earth here as well to create various safety phasings week by week, and just discuss that with the supply chain and the lads on site. So even though it's not VR and it's a lot clunkier than what we'll be talking about today, it's something that Sewell have wanted to do and have implemented in the past.
Okay, so we'll just start with an overview of virtual reality to give you all a kind of flavour as to what it's all about and how it kind of came about. So virtual reality is quite a well, relatively new technology, but actually it's been around quite a while in different kind of guises, really. It's part of a wider sense of technologies, immersive technologies. It's probably the most common one you would suggest when you mention the word immersive technology. So it usually is in the form of a headset, can be in other forms. The one we're going to talk about today is a headset form. In terms of its use in the industry, it has been one of those ones where people have kind of left it and not really been engaged with it that much in the industry, but it is becoming more and more accessible because the equipment has become more available, the technology is becoming more efficient, so it's becoming something more and more integrated into the industry. As I say, it's been quite a challenge as an acceptance technology to our sector, even though in other sectors it's been quite a useful and used technology. One of those ones has been a difficult nut to crack within the construction sector. So in terms of the potential it has, today we're talking about health and safety integration, of course, but it does have other potential benefits generally. So from visual walkarounds, particularly for clients and end users to walk around their environment. Of course, you can do that on a screen, but immersing yourself into it gives you a sense of scale. Design coordination, so it's getting those things correct and detailing correct prior to construction, which of course can be a lot beneficial in terms of cost. Health and safety training simulations is something that's been quite common, really. So in terms of plant and equipment training using virtual reality, again, it's taking the risk out of training. So when you're looking at training, particularly in plant and equipment, you have to get into that equipment to do it. Whereas in virtual reality, you can simulate that activity, particularly with plant and equipment training. Today, we're talking about logistics planning and sequencing. So it's about getting that plan right, getting logistics right prior to construction, to try and identify those issues within the model. But instead of on a screen, you're actually immersed within the environment while you do that. So that's what we're talking about today.
Okay, a little bit about the background of the collaboration then. So it's a collaboration between Sewell and Sheffield Hallam, as we've said, to investigate on-site technology applications. So we were already looking for new ways to integrate digital technologies into our projects, and it just so happened it was a chance conversation between Mark and one of our colleagues. Mark was looking as a PhD research student to find a main contractor that would support his workshop and research, and the rest is history.
Okay, so the case study we're going to talk about today was a trial of virtual reality. So this is a journey that the company is going through, and we're seeing what value that the virtual reality tools have in terms of safety planning processes and getting the technology onto the project sites as opposed to, you know, in the office environment. So it's a trial software. We're looking at low cost equipment. We haven't invested in huge amount of technology for this project. It was relatively low scale, relatively low, affordable technology you could buy. So it wasn't something we made ourselves. It was a case of buying existing software and tools and utilising them in this way to see what the benefits and value added was. There is a published article if you want to have a look at it. It does detail what we did on part of the trial process on the BIM Plus website. Links on the bottom there if you want to have a look at that.
We were invited here today on the back of Duncan seeing that, I think. So thank you for that, Duncan.
So a little bit about the overview of the projects where we actually we use the virtual reality then. The project's the Boulevard Academy in Hull. It's for our client Hull Esteem, which is on behalf of Hull City Council. They're very local to ourselves, and obviously the contract period there is from July 2021 to soon be finishing September 2022. It was quite, in the grand scheme of things of the buildings we're surrounded by today, it was quite a small project of £7.5 million. So what we're trying to put forward is this technology. It can be done on any size projects. It doesn't have to be a massive project like what we've got opposite us. It can be like a £7.5 million school. It's a new build extension teaching block to accommodate 300 students in Hull. The space includes STEM classrooms, food, textiles, general teaching spaces, activity studios, and etc. Really, just a basic school.
Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about the process we went through as a bit of an overview. Obviously, there's more intricate details to go through here, but I've given it as a bit of a summary. So how we actually integrate it into the process itself. So step one, understanding organisational requirements and needs. So here we tried to understand what the potential was for the company, how we could embed the technology into the company itself, the key drivers, whether it's from a company perspective, a client demand, those types of things. Looked at some of the challenges that we faced, and we'll discuss those later as well, as a company as a whole, which led into stage two, which was to plan the implementation process. So we looked at different hardwares available, different softwares that were available we could use for the project, tried to select an appropriate project we could trial this on. You know, have a look at connectivity on site. Because we're using it on site, there is that issue of that you know, temporary environment we looked at as well. And then we looked at communicating with the supply chain. As we'll look at later, we used a particular element of the building, which was the steel frame structure. So it was getting the supply chain on board as well with the main contractor. That led into stage three, which was the implementation. So we planned it, we looked at the organisational needs, and then it was a case of implementing it. And we did that through via collaborative workshops. So prior to the construction activities on site, we had the site management team, the quantity surveying team, the subcontract team, and the site operatives involved on site with the headsets, talking about the project. And I'll show you some photos of that later on and some videos later on of that. The idea of it was to look at the sequence of works, highlight safety risks along the way, and to communicate those safety risks as well, and get that feedback from the team of how they would like that crane to be located, or where we need to locate this piece of equipment. So it was all about that feedback. The fourth stage was the feedback. So we went through a process of collecting feedback from the site team, so the operatives, the management team, the QSs, and the higher organisational team as well, to see what the main feedback was, what was the value added, and what lessons can we learn to then move into next steps. As I mentioned, this is a journey we just started on, so what the next steps to that in terms of how we'd implement this further into the business and projects. So on-site implementation. So this took a number of workshops, and with the workshops we had various people involved in the process. We had obviously myself, we had the operatives, we had the QSs and site management team, various people involved in the project. As you can see there in the image on the top right, we have the operatives. I think that one was the crane driver that sat there, locating where they're going to put the equipment. So it was a case of we had some outline plans of where we're going to put things, but now we're going to test that out. So we looked at crane locations, offloading locations, how we're going to segregate and bury that off. We communicated where we're going to put the mutes, how the sequential order of putting the scaffolding up. We looked at if you see the bottom right picture there, the school was next door with their thoroughfare for students. So how we're going to segregate that off, how that's going to work. And the segregation of deliveries again, we talked about. So it was a case of one, communicating the hazards we knew about with the operatives on site, but also then looking at further plans. How do we mitigate risk? How do we identify those issues? And then logistically plan the project, but in a virtual world as opposed to just looking at a 2D drawing or on a screen. So hoping the video would work.
Don't like it, does it?
Doesn't like that one.
We can do that as part of the round table.
Yes, we can look at that later. So the video would have shown the virtual reality environment working there. But you can see again on the right side picture, we had everyone involved in the process. So we had the site operatives, the site management team, and you can see there the interaction with everyone, literally going up, looking at what's happening, stopping it, freeze framing it, finding out where we're going to put things and logistics issues we found during the way. So on site, real life implementation of the software with everyone involved in a collaborative way. There's the video. I had to click the button on there. So you can see there, we looked at obviously entrances and exits of the build. We looked at how we can segregate. You can see the site cabins there and the entrance and exits. What we found really useful with this headset environment was you can get to locations you just can't get to anywhere else. And bear in mind, there's no steel up at the time. So this was all a fresh site, doing this kind of quite far in advance before. In this example here, looking at the crane, we can see that we're going to put the steel columns up in that far left corner there. So is the crane in the right location? Checking that out. Simulating where we're going to put the mute, so that vertical elevation, you can see from there the model, that's what the mute would have done. So how are we going to receive the column? Well, it's going to come over this way. Can we then segregate the deliveries off properly? Well, yeah, we can do. So where we're going to put the segregation, we're going to put it there. So we can insert the barrier fencing, for example, which will pop up in a second. And we can trial it. You know, is that going to be enough room to get further deliveries through or not? You know, we can see that the crane is going to lift the column into that far, say, left-hand corner. So we can sort of discuss it. Is that the right sequential order? Do we start from front to back? Do we start from left to right? How do we do this? Can we test it out? And you can see there, we're moving some of the mutes around. So we've got the mutes there, and just move them to the centre of the building. And maybe that mute there needs to move further over as well. So we can start to move equipment around, look at logistics planning. But the main thing was getting the site feedback, because at the end of the day, the management team aren't the ones on the cherry picker. They aren't the ones driving the crane. So the guys on site get that feedback, and we can start moving things around. The other thing that was quite useful as well, just looking at the video, was that the site team and the subcontract team were doing that one piece of work. There's other pieces of work happening on that project. So it was communicating that as well. So whilst that's happening, this groundwork is doing drainage. Whilst that's happening, how do we then segregate those two teams apart? Okay, so as I mentioned before, we did a bit of work on the feedback. As I mentioned before, virtual reality has been a bit of a hard nut to crack in construction. I've found with my own experience and that of others. So some of the main benefits we found, and again, this is a trial. We found that the virtual reality environment was a really quick point of reference. So rather than having to look through 2D drawings or even a 3D model on a screen, you can instantly see where you were on that model and how it's going to go pretty quickly, an instant point of reference. We were not trying to explain things of how the school works or how the entrance exits work. It was instant. Everyone could see that clear point of reference. It engaged the team instantly. So the site operatives involved, they were getting really involved with it. They were moving things around. They were sat there as if it was in the crane. Where we're going to put that, where we're going to put this. It was almost instant engagement with the team. And the feedback from the site management team was it did allow them to communicate with those, with the operatives who were about to do the work very, very quickly and easily at a single point of quick reference.
It's non-typical, as I'm sure you know, for the lads on the ground to come up into the site cabins and be part of informing those RAMs. Usually they're desktop, they come to site, the site manager checks them, but there's not that whole team approach and collaboration, and it allowed for that, which has been really beneficial. And I think the operatives really appreciated the time that was taken to listen to their expertise.
And the relationship also improved on site with us doing that, didn't it?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So in terms of hazard identification, well, it is really quickly, again, being able to see what problems you're going to come across, and particularly in terms of logistics, how we're going to segregate where we're going to put machinery and plant. That was one of the main ones. So it's very quickly in terms of identification of those issues and then logging those issues down and then looking at mitigation. It also highlighted potential training opportunities, mainly for less experienced members of staff to very quickly come up to speed with building technology, for example, and health and safety issues, of course. So how the steel is going to be erected, the sequential order, and things like that were really, really quick training exercise for those that might not have seen the steel erection happening before, and how the connection details were going to go.
I've just put a little table at the bottom there. So the three sort of stages: pre-con, substructure, superstructure, fabric, fit out. We've thought about the fact, as well as the other benefits, that for us as principal contractors in the planning stages, both pre-con in the office and with the supply chain, really good points of reference, as Mark has said. But also for myself in design management, I do a lot of upfront stakeholder engagement with client teams and the end users, and those visualizations are just so important and really help everybody understand what we have in mind visually, especially for people that aren't used to reading two-dimensional drawings and can't visualize what that'll look like in reality, spatially, etc. Similarly, exactly the same can be used for client comms during the superstructure going up, in this case of the steel frame, contractor progress meetings, etc. Really useful appendices to CPM reports. And again, into the fit out stage of client communication and just making that whole stakeholder engagement process slicker and easier for everybody to understand.
Okay, yeah, so in terms of the challenges, we looked at this initially. We've also looked at this in terms of the feedback from the site. Bullet pointed there some of the key challenges we found along the way. So firstly, with the digital skills, so in terms of the software, the hardware implementation, is finding the right balance of skills required, particularly from a site point of view as well as time on site to carry out these activities, was also a challenge. In terms of resources, buy-in from clients and supply chain, things like that was also a bit of a challenge. And then selecting exactly which software and hardware to use, trying to keep it relatively low cost as a trial was also a bit of a challenge. Also around awareness and what people think about it already, that preconception of virtual reality and what benefits it might have. The size of project to client demand as well, we looked at those as sort of key challenges, mainly because a lot of people might suggest that this type of technology is expensive and would only be required on large scale projects. Well, actually, you could use it on any scale project, really. The model itself is already constructed. It's just creating that virtual world now to look into that model. One of the key challenges we found with virtual reality generally into projects is what value does it add? Because some value is very tangible, whereas other values maybe not so tangible. So increasing communication of design teams or contractors or end users is quite difficult to measure that value. So it's a case of the research was about what value is actually adding to the project in terms of safety.
For me as well, challenges can become benefits. So the supply chain pre-contracts, resource and time buy-in, that those ramps have to happen anyway. It's something that has to happen, and it does happen. The time's already allocated, but the supply chain don't get involved usually at that point. So the main challenge was engaging with the steel erector to say, well, this is why we think it would work and be of benefit to you, when they think, well, we've been doing this, 25 years, and the current situation works absolutely fine. So sorry, Donkin, you've thrown me off there by signalling me. Yeah, that turned into a benefit later on. So it's important to see that challenges can turn into benefits.
I'll just quickly run through this. I won't read all that, conscious we've got 3 minutes. But just I'll pick some points out. These are the people, and you've got myself on there, who were at the VR workshop, what Mark did. And just some key things there, like Beth Dennett, who's our social investment champion, very new to the industry. She found it fascinating about building the work. She'd never really seen anything like that. Like Katie pointed out, it's quite difficult if you're new to the industry, reading 2D drawings. She found it really good with that. Rob Page, our site manager, he found it very collaborative as a team. It brought us together and it helped for a more buildable project. I've already said my views, and just Mark Booker, our joint managing director, he was really passionate about it and how we're going to possibly implement this into our business on most of our schemes.
That's been taken from the BIM Plus magazine. So
and yeah, that's on the BIM Plus if you want to go read that.
We flick through this one. With it being a live site next door to a school, we wanted to engage the students next door, so they were part of a separate workshop as well. You run the same workshop now, didn't you? But basically from a bridging the skills gap perspective, and getting the kids on board with what was going on and immersing them in site activity and how VR can be used on site as well. Next steps. So next steps and lessons learned within Sewell and Sheffield Hallam.
Yeah, so firstly with Sheffield Hallam, the experience has really assisted us in how we teach our students. So we wasn't really up on delivering virtual reality within the educational framework. That is now happening now. So we've got the models we can use. We're starting to implement that within the courses as well. So it's really found a benefit with engaging young people into different tools and techniques. So it's been a really good positive outcome.
So it also opens horizons to new jobs, and as I've said, bridging the skills gaps of young people growing up with this technology, and enhances progression of learning as well. Communication-wise, we've touched on clients and end users, visualisation and spatial awareness, and them not being used to looking at traditional construction drawings, and it's really easy to see physical outcomes. From a design management and project management point of view, obviously risk planning, time programme, really important on site, and it's a massive plus point in that we can de-risk the project by reducing interpretation and creating a fixed point for safety, cost and time. We can also integrate with 4D planning to demonstrate pressure points in the programme, amongst other things. It leads on from what Gordon was saying earlier, really.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.